Hi everybody, welcome to Dram Daddy Whiskey. I'm Dan, and tonight we're gonna try the latest bourbon from Barrell Craft Spirits. We're talking about Barrell Bourbon Batch 34. Barrell is one of the best sourcing, blending, non-distilling producers in the game right now. As far as I know, they don't distill any of their own stuff at all, but they are not shy about finding places all around the country to source their bourbon from for different releases that they have. The majority of their releases, I believe, are sourced from what I consider to be the big three these days: Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee. And Batch 34 is no different, which is great news for me because I think really the best bourbon in the world comes from those three states. So let's see if Barrell Bourbon Batch 34 is any good, and if it lives up to the high bar set by Batch 33, which in my opinion was outstanding. So we are working with a cask strength bourbon that is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. It is 6 years old, 114.62 proof, which puts it at 57.31% ABV. As I mentioned, it's distilled in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee, blended by Barrell Craft Spirits. And that's all we need to know. On the nose. Was sweet on the nose, and then something about it reminded me of like a Four Roses or something. There's definitely some like classic bourbon sweetness on here. So it's like, you know, your caramels, your vanillas, your brown sugars a little bit. But there's also a bitterness that I sometimes pick up in MGP that's there. It's not like off-putting really, especially when it's not too strong, but it's definitely there. But then there's also like this herbal quality that kind of flirts with fruitiness, which I sometimes pick up in the like F yeast recipes from Four Roses, the like minty one. That especially after like some air's gotten to that mintiness sometimes kind of turns into like a spicy strawberry, like a strawberry rhubarb or something like that. I sound like I'm going off the deep end, but that's what I pick up sometimes. I'm not picking that up in here, but it's like sort of leaning in that direction a bit from traditional bourbon, sort of MGP bitterness, and then leaning toward that like strawberry rhubarb a bit. All right, before I scare people away with more random craziness that I pick up on the nose, let's give it a taste. The development on this one is nuts. It starts off really simple, straightforward bourbon, and I was thinking, okay, for everything going on in the nose, there's not a lot going on in the palate. But then it develops into this like fruity, spicy bouquet on the back palate that just, you know, fills your palate, your throat, everything on the finish. It's really good. It's not super viscous, but that's not a bad thing. Like it's, I don't want to say thin, but it's light. It's light on the palate. That's in a good way. That sounds dumb. I don't know how to articulate between the times when viscosity is something that I really like seek, like this like thick, awesome kind of like chewy mouthfeel, versus when having a more light, thin bourbon that still packs a lot of flavor is the way to go. But I think that might be what seals the deal. The fact that this is light on the palate as far as like viscosity goes, but still packs a lot of flavor and a lot of development on the palate. Second sip. You know, light vanilla custard up front, some oak on the mid palate, and then that spice on the back, a touch of bitterness, and maybe some of that strawberry rhubarb sort of like sweetness. Not that far. It's like reined in by the spice and the bit of that bitter note. I would imagine it's the MGP where I'm getting that from, because it tastes a little bit like MGP bourbon. But I'm not the hugest fan of just straight MGP bourbon for the most part. Like there's a single barrel every now and then that I really like, but I feel like this blend uses MGP in the right way, and that touch of that classic like MGP note is all that you get here, and then it goes into some different directions too. So really good. Third sip. Yeah, nothing new, solidifies it. Sweet, vanilla, custardy maybe up front, And then as you get to the back palate, so you get that bouquet of spice and strawberry rhubarb, a little bit of bitterness, but overall, you're just left with kind of all of that. Not one note is taking over on the finish, which makes this a really interesting, enjoyable bourbon to drink. It's hard to call a cask strength bourbon a daily drinker. It's especially hard to call a cask strength bourbon that costs like 90 bucks or more a daily drinker, but that's what this feels like. Just a really good, solid bourbon that's easy to drink, that has just about everything you want. Maybe not every flavor profile, but it's got a lot going on. It hits a lot of different marks, and it's developing all the time. Like, you can pick out those different flavors at any point during the drink. I really appreciate that. I think they did a really, really good job of blending this. But what score do I give it? The whiskey in this glass, I think really, oh man, if anything stands out about this, it's just how well it's blended to allow so much to go on in the palate at once and like throughout the development. That's really cool to me. It just makes it really interesting. I don't know that any one of the flavors in here is something that I would like drool over, but just that there is so much going on earns this a lot of marks in my book. So the score that I will give Barrell Bourbon Batch 34 is an 8.4. It is a great bourbon. I really, really enjoy it. I would love to have one of these on my shelf at all times, but that could be cost prohibitive, which leads us to the grade, which takes price into account, as well as availability, pretty much everything. Everything, the whole experience of finding it, buying it, drinking it, and how you feel after you spend all the money on it. Barrell's pretty well distributed. You can also order online from their website, from a bunch of other online distributors. I don't think you'll have a hard time getting this bottle if you want it. The price, the cheapest you'll find this, I believe, is usually around $90. Every now and then you'll get a Barrell product from a random online retailer, or sometimes from them for like $80, but I think that's about as cheap as it goes. And I know in my area, at least, Total Wine always jacks the price up of these to like over $100, which is a little ridiculous. So the price on that, I mean, we know what we're paying for, right? Everyone's trying to source whiskey these days, so the price on any sourced whiskey is going up, especially MGP. This is blended really well, so I guess the name they've made for themselves for blending whiskey well increases the price probably too. But ultimately, while we are dealing with the cask strength whiskey, which is great, like this isn't being watered down at all, the youngest whiskey in here is 6 years old. The youth isn't screaming out at me. So overall grade for this release from, what was it, like an 8.4 on the score. I give the grade on this a B+. A little more expensive, really, really well done. I don't know if it reaches the heights of batch 33, but I really, really enjoy it. I'm glad they steered away from some of the earlier batches that tend to be like banana-esque. That's just not my jam. If you think differently, let me know. If you hated this batch, let me know. If you absolutely loved it and you think this is A+, 9.5, 10 out of 10, whatever, let us know. Let us know in the comments what you pick up, if I wasn't picking up enough, if you picked up more, if you didn't get some of the stuff that I was picking up, if you didn't experience the development the way I did, let us know. Comment, like, subscribe so you can get in on the next review, and let me know whether you agree or disagree with me on that one too. It'd be much appreciated. And until then, cheers.